our regular City Council meeting to order. I would like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Andy, could you please lead us?
I would be happy to, Jack. I pledge
allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Latanya, could you help for the roll call, please?
Yes. Councilmember Felder.
Here.
Councilmember Lowell.
Here.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Here,
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Here.
Mayor Dean.
Here. This meeting is the first meeting for us to get in-person meeting. And also, we conducted this meeting by hybrid. That means we can see each other and also we can participate in the meeting via the Zoom. So anybody want to join this meeting, you can click and highlight it and an agenda linked to the Zoom. If you don't have the computer or iPhone, also you can call the number that is 669-900-9018. You can call in and also dial the start and the 9. That means you raise your hand and you can make a public comment. That is the reason why today I want to say, because on the agenda we can see in this meeting, attendees still needed to wear the mask. However, we got an order from the state yesterday. In room the meeting, not necessary to wear the mask. So that's the reason today we don't wear the mask. Four o'clock this evening, and we have the closed section. We just finished, and then we discuss about the transition period from the city managers from interim and from the permanent. We discuss. No any further information can be released right now. We are still searching. Next one is why I want to approve agenda. Do you have any changes for today's agenda?
so move.
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye,
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye. Thank
Motion
you.
carries unanimously.
All right. Let's go to agenda number 1, public comments. Any items not appearing on this agenda, right now it's the chance for you to speak. Please keep your speech in 3 or less, 3 minutes or less. Anyone in the Zoom?
We do have 2 hands
All right.
raised. First up is Gil Latimer.
All right.
Good evening, Gil Latimer, Latimer, Sonoma. I'm speaking this evening not only for the 200 members of the Sonoma Valley Cannabis Group, but for the thousands of medical patients and other consumers in Sonoma and the Lower Valley asking for fairer access to cannabis. We'd like to remind the City Council that it has been almost a year since our cannabis ordinance was enacted to permit a second dispensary. Had the new RFP been released last summer, we'd now be on the road to a more equitable environment for the purchase of medical and recreational cannabis. But a funny thing happened on the way to the objective. Last fall, Spark's owner, Eric Pearson, stood in front of council members and deliberately misled them on his financial situation. Mr. Pearson pleaded poverty and asked the council to delay the RFP for another year to allow Spark to show, quote, how viable the business is and see if the city can sustain another business, unquote. 2 months later, the City Council agreed and tabled the RFP until the end of 2022. The notion that a city must find out how profitable any business is before allowing another of similar type to open is patently ridiculous. This is done for no other business, not a pharmacy, not a food market, certainly not for a wine tasting bar. In a free market, it is the market that decides which businesses survive or fail. And why do we say that Pearson misrepresented his financial situation to the city last fall? Because despite his alleged money woes, he just opened a brand new dispensary on Polk Street in San Francisco. So it appears he's not really doing as badly as he'd like everyone to think. It's unfortunate that the Sonoma City Council has played into his hands. In doing so, it is now supporting a de jure monopoly that not only deprives medical patients and consumers a competitive market with better prices and products, but also helps protect the black market. Fair access to cannabis is a fundamental human and medical right. Allowing one operator to dominate the local market hurts everyone. This cannot be about campaign contributions and backdoor lobbying. This cannot be about politics. This cannot be about personal grievance or fear or misinformation. None of that is fair to the citizens of Sonoma and the Valley. Please, it's time for the Sonoma City Council to issue the RFP. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Josette Brose-Eicher.
Hi, Josette Brose-Eicher. Thank you, Mayor Ding and City Council members for listening to me tonight. The words of Eric Pearson of Spark from last September's City Council meeting. We're asking that the process not begin for another year so that we can see a year's worth of data on profitability to see how viable the business is and to see if the city can sustain another business. And then from a recent piece in the IT, whether the tax is cut or remains, Eric Pearson, CEO of the cannabis dispensary brand Spark, said he's not worried about his business, which will have 3 stores in Sonoma County by summer. That includes the Highway 12 location that will mark Sonoma's first dispensary in city limits, set to open on April 20th. However, the cultivation tax
Josette, can you unmute yourself, please? We had a little malfunction.
Okay, where did I leave off?
April
April
12th?
20th?
Yes.
Okay. However, the cultivation tax, he said, is causing the industry to consolidate and push out small-time farmers and people of color. And now Mr. Pearson Spark is opening a new location in San Francisco too. Does this sound like someone who has financial worries? Of course not, because he has the market sewn up and he has played his cards right. Unfortunately, he played all of us too. What he fails to say in his quote in the IT is that he too is pushing out the small-time farmers and people of color. A vertically integrated business such as his does it all. In today's world where we are all confronted with many giant and frightening larger issues, why even bring this little second cannabis dispensary item up? Why? Because it is simple and easy to do and within this city council's grasp. I myself feel played because I worked on defeating Measure Y. I believe that letting someone as out of control as John Early set the rules for cannabis businesses in the city of Sonoma would come back to bite us in the butt. I believe that strong local control created by the city council was the way to go, but I did not count on fairness not being part of the equation. Many of us worked very hard on getting the city ordinance changed to permit a second dispensary. Maybe I should have put the same effort into supporting Measure Y instead. We can do the small things like this one, and who knows, Maybe we can then even tackle some of the bigger ones too. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Eicher. Do you want to speak? Bob? Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, because I saw you on the step in after we opened the public comments from the Zoom. Thank you.
There are no more hands raised for Zoom. Mayor.
All right. So let me close the public comments. Let's go to the next agenda item, number 2, meeting dedications.
I have none.
You have none? How about you? All right. Yeah, not for this time. And agenda number 3, presentation. It's kind of an honor for me. I want to announce this month, March of 2022, is the month of the American Red Cross. City of the Sonoma Proclamation, proclaiming the March as American Red Cross Month in the city of the Sonoma. In times of crisis, people in the city of the Sonoma come together to care for one another. This humanitarian spirit is a part of the foundation of our community. Is exemplified by the American Red Cross volunteers and donors. Next, I would like to ask representative from Red Cross, Andy and Tom, give us a speech. Thank you.
I will try to keep my remarks brief. It's hard to follow the marijuana discussion with a straight face, but I'm going to do my best to be very serious here. I do want to greet my friend Robert. So Robert and I serve on the board of another
Is the microphone on?
organization.
I saw.
Global Partners for Development. Anyway, we want to say thank you very much to the city council members and the mayor for declaring this Red Cross Month. We're hoping that all the cities in both counties of Napa and Sonoma will be doing the same. We had 2 or 3 last night. We have another one in Windsor. They're also declaring it Red Cross Month. The Red Cross appreciates very much the support, and we can't, without the volunteers that do the work on the projects that we do, we can't succeed. Tom Cook is an extraordinary volunteer for Red Cross. He is the head of our mass care program in Napa and Sonoma counties. He lines up shelters for when there's a disaster that occurs, whether it's fire, flood, or any other kind of disaster. And he has volunteers that will staff those shelters, supply those shelters, and close them down at the end. In addition to that, he's a member of our disaster action team. We get calls from fire departments when there's a home fire, and Tom is part of the team that goes out and responds and offers assistance to those people whose homes are either destroyed or partially destroyed, and they need assistance. So Tom is an exemplary Red Cross volunteer. Again, I want to thank you very much for declaring this to be Red Cross Month. I also want to tell you about a special program that Red Cross is involved in across the country and here in Sonoma and Napa counties. That is called Sound the Alarm. Every 7 minutes across the country, there's a fire in a home. Most of those are in homes that have no smoke alarms. And so Red Cross across the nation is attempting to get smoke alarms into the homes of people that do not have them, especially those people in need who can't afford to go and buy them. That program again is called Sound the Alarm. If you want to find out more about it, you can go on soundthealarm.org. I'm also going to send Rebecca, who is not here. I know she began her vacation yesterday or today, but she's the one that set this all up in motion for me, turned me over into the good hands of Latanya, and I appreciate your help today. So Sound the Alarm is attempting in the month late April and early May to install 300,000 alarms in 100,000 homes across the country. We hope to have a small portion of those be in Napa and Sonoma counties. And I intend to contact the Sonoma Valley Fire and Rescue Organization. In Napa, their fire department works hand in hand with us. They install smoke alarms that we provide them with. I'm hoping to do the same with the fire and rescue group over here in Sonoma Valley. So anyway, we do hope that residents of the city of Sonoma who need smoke alarms will contact us through soundthealarm.org. Very easy. Just put that in your website. It'll take you right to the site. There's a phone number or an email where you can contact us, and we'll make an appointment to come to your home and install those alarms. So again, thank you so much to the City Council for your proclamation. We hope that the local newspaper will pick it up and say some kind words about the program and encourage residents to get their homes protected by smoke alarms. I also wanted to mention, one of the reasons I came in person tonight, Tom lives here, as I said, I live in Santa Rosa, but my good friend Sandra Lowe, who was just elected to your school board, Sandra, when she was a teacher at Sonoma Valley High School, and I was a kindergarten teacher in Rohnert Park, we both ended up being the presidents of our local teachers association, and we worked for many years in the county, in Northern California, in the state of California, and so it was good to see Sandra sitting up there on the dais with the rest of you. Thank you again very much for proclaiming us Red Cross Month.
Thank you.
It's a hard act to follow. Act one, marijuana, act two, Andy. But as a resident of Sonoma, I just want to extend my appreciation to all of you for the work you do. I've been involved in both nonprofit organizational management and U.S. government managing. I was with Peace Corps for 10 years managing volunteerism. So my heart goes out to people that volunteer their time to do community work. And again, one thing Andy missed, but I'm going to state it profoundly, and that is we're always, always looking for people to step up and assist in many ways. One of them is donate blood. We need blood nationally, drastically. We really need people to step up and donate blood, given the COVID situation. Number two, we need people to help administer that process, whether it's the blood banks. My team in disaster services, you guys all know we have a special need here for people that step up and do that work. And I can't tell you how many times in the disasters we've had where people come out of the woodwork to volunteer. My job is to make sure they're prepared to help do that. So again, your family, your friends, anyone that you can shout out the message that volunteerism is important in their life, but also Red Cross could use their help too. So again, thank you very much, and thank you again for the jobs you do, and best of luck with everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Again, thank
I
you
would
very
like
much.
to present the certificate for you.
Thank you very much, Jack, and for those of you who haven't seen it, it's a lovely official proclamation with the seal of the city of Sonoma. And I would like to stay for the whole meeting, but Tom's wife is cooking dinner for me. Thanks for letting me take my mask off at the door, Mr. Vice Mayor. Good night.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you to the.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say to the city staff also that when this came to us at first, there was we'd stopped doing these sort of things, and we would have been the only city in 2 counties that didn't have honor the Red Cross, and so I'm glad that we broke tradition with such a fine organization. So thank you.
Thank you again, Senator Lowe. Yeah, initiated this program. We appreciate it. And also, at this time, I also want to send out a special concern for our sister cities in Ukraine, Kyiv. And the last Friday, we sent over the letter at the first time, because invasion happened just on the last Thursday. Next day, 18 hours later, the letter has already been sent out to other sister cities, Kyiv. Right now, we are still waiting for the reply, and also our local fundraising for our sister cities peoples already started. And please take a look at the website and Kaniev's, they need help. That is the spirit of our Sonoma city. Thank you so much. Agenda number 4, consent calendar. Anybody want to put out for special discussion or?
Move to approve?
Yes.
Second?
All right. Roll call, please.
Before we have roll call, can we have public
Oh,
comment?
public, yes. Right now, I'm open to the public. Any comments?
Forgive my, good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. Happy you're feeling better, apparently, yes. And Sandra, I hope your mom is better. Thank you. Robert Demler, First Street West, Sonoma. Is this the time to speak about the historic districts?
No, right now, I'm
confused.
afraid not.
It's
Yeah,
the next.
Yeah, next agenda.
I'm sorry.
It's fine.
I've taken up some of my 3 minutes. Sorry.
It's coming soon, yeah. Thank you. Yeah. First of all, we'd like to approve a consent agenda. We already had motion and also second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte, Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Agenda number 5, public hearing. 5.1, consideration, discussion, and possible action to adopt resolution designating 3 districts within the city as local historic districts. Number 1, the Train District. Number 2, Sebastiani Cottage District. And then number 3, Broadway Corridor District. Update pursuant to City of the Sonoma Municipal Code Section 19.42.020, entitled Designation of the Local Historic Resources and the District. City Manager Sue and David, Plan Director.
Hold on, I'm going to turn this right over to Christina Tierney.
All right.
Yeah.
You can just use the forward clicker.
It's thinking. What happens with the technology sometimes. It's all right, we can just move forward. We'll see if, can I trouble you to see if we can get that up and I'll just get started. All right. I know everyone's time is very valuable, so I'm going to ask LaTanya to help me troubleshoot the PowerPoint, and I'm going to just keep going. So the initiative this evening before the City Council is the potential designation of 3 historic districts in the city of Sonoma. We have 2 new districts and recommended modifications to the existing Broadway district. This initiative represents years of collaboration between city staff, the Sonoma Valley Historical Society, the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation, our Design Review Commission, Planning Commission, and City Council. So it really is an honor to be the staff member to bring this forward at this time. Thank you. So this whole initiative really started with the Historic Train District, and the scope was expanded as really a benefit to the community. The Historic Train District was identified as a potential historic district in June of 2016 through the historic resource evaluation that was done for the restoration to the Masonavi Cottage. And the, yeah, I don't, do you mind putting this, it has to be on the, thank you. There we go. Thank you. There we go. So the historic resource evaluation that was prepared for the Masonavi Cottage suggested the possibility of creating a historic district for the association with the train depot and the railroad tracks in the area of First Street West and First Street East. And the Design Review Commission in 2016 expressed support for researching and establishing a historic train district to recognize and preserve the cluster of historic structures in that area by Depot Park that are associated with the North Pacific Railway. The desire by Design Review was followed up with an allocation of funding by City Council in 2018, and the city also received a grant in 2020 to support this work. And when we were going through the process of hiring a consultant, we had discussions with our consultant, Paige and Turnbull, who's on our Zoom this evening. Is Stacy promoted? Awesome. And we were able to, within the same budget, not only look at the historic train district, but also consider all of the existing historic districts in our historic overlay, which is an existing historic district itself. And so they did a really thorough evaluation of the historic overlay to determine whether or not there were other areas that deserve special recognition. And so in that process, they identified the historic train district, and the Sebastiani Cottage district was another district that was identified many years ago as part of the environmental impact report for the subdivision that is now San Lorenzo Court. And then Page and Turnbull recommended the modifications to the Broadway district, and the Broadway district has been a historic district since 2002. So the process in the city of Sonoma for designating a district is contained in Sonoma Municipal Code section 1942-020, which outlines the process for designating the district. In this case, the process started with the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission. We had a public hearing on February 15th, and the Design Review Commission unanimously recommended that the City Council approve the district. One of the interesting considerations to note about the designation is there really are specific requirements for a designation. If you, on the screen, number 2, the proposed district must be a geographically definable area. It must possess either a significant concentration or continuity of buildings unified by past events or aesthetically by, oh my gosh, I can't read up there, plan or physical development. And as a whole, they need to be considered, have a sufficient concentration to demonstrate integrity of design, settings, materials, workmanship, and association. The collective historic value of the buildings and structures in the district is greater than the historic value of each individual building or district. And the designation of the area as a historic district is reasonable, appropriate, and necessary to protect, promote, further the goals and purposes of our municipal code, and is not inconsistent. So as I mentioned, we brought on Page and Turnbull, and I will turn this over to our representative, Stacy Kosakevich, in a moment. This figure is to highlight the general locations for the districts. So the dark gray is the historic overlay district, which I mentioned is an existing historic district. And the Broadway district is only recommended for modifying to add one parcel. And the two new districts, the Train District and the Sebastiani Cottage District, are within the historic overlay, as I mentioned. And there's an item on later on the agenda regarding Senate Bill 9. And this, just wanted to highlight that all these districts are within the historic overlay and would have no impact on the implementation of SB 9 for these parcels. So I mentioned that this was reviewed and highly supported by the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission on February 15th. The Design Review Commission did recommend that the City Council continue the discussions and to consider signage and some other methods to share this information more broadly for locals and visitors alike. And they would like to see, just not that these districts are going to be created and sit on somebody's book somewhere, but just to help enliven and support Sonoma's history. So the recommendation this evening is for City Council to adopt a resolution designating the 3 districts and finding that the project's exempt under CEQA. And I look forward to continuing the conversation and am available if there are questions. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Detailed presentation. Questions? Yeah.
I have a question. Thank you, Christina, for that presentation. If you are a contributing member to the historic district, that means the property is already historic individually. And so if you're within a historic district, I assume there would be no effect in terms of potential additions or modifications to your property. If you're so is that correct?
I would love you, if I can turn it over to Stacy, maybe bring Stacy into the conversation. She's probably a better person to answer those questions.
Stacy, you'll need to unmute.
City of Sonoma to help identify and evaluate these 3 districts. With respect to the question regarding properties already in districts, an individual contributor to a district may or may not be individually significant as a historic resource. However, because these 3 districts are already all located within the historic overlay zone, the design review procedures for proposed alterations within these properties will not significantly change. What designating these districts will provide is a little bit more context for what is appropriate for specific areas within the historic overlay zone.
Okay, and that would obviously apply to non-contributing properties within the district. Because it's already within the historic overlay.
Within the historic, well, the historic
No, within the
overlay
historic
zone
district.
as a whole does not have listed contributors versus non-contributors. Properties are simply within it or outside of it. The historic districts have contributors and non-contributors.
Yes.
Contributors to the districts would be considered differently to the extent that they already have a level of compatibility with the district and are, as the name suggests, contribute through their architectural style and historical associations to the district. On non-contributing properties, developments within the district boundaries that are not contributors would need to be compatible with the character of the district. I do have a short presentation if we have time for that.
Sure.
Okay, I'll share my screen. I'll just try to give you a flying tour through the 3 districts that we helped the City of Sonoma to evaluate. If everyone can see my screen. As you can see the map that similar to what Christina shared, the 3 districts are shown within the context of the historic overlay zone. The Depot district is the blue district, the red is the Samuel Sebastiani residential district, and the green is the Broadway Street Historic District. We did a quick field survey in July of 2021 and completed detailed DPR 523, which are state level forms for recording and evaluating historic resources, which we've given to the City of Sonoma. All 3 districts are eligible for designation both at the local level, but also as California Register resources, or in the case of the Broadway District, has been previously determined a National Register eligible resource. The Depot District, what you can see here are, this kind of helps to clarify the difference between contributors and non-contributors. For example, the Depot District has a period of significance of 1890 to 1942. It has 12 contributing properties in it, which date to that period. It's a combination of residential and commercial properties. And those individual properties have certain aspects of their character that contribute to the significance of the district. However, each of them as an individual resource may or may not be eligible as a historic resource, and so might not have the level of integrity that might be needed for consideration as a property to be preserved. And so the kind of planning approach to different properties within these districts is going to have to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Examples of properties within these districts include residential cottages, like you can see, as well as commercial properties like the Depot Hotel. The Sebastiani Residential Historic District consists of cottages built by Samuel Sebastiani while owning the properties adjacent to the family vineyards and winery, historically the winery and cannery, between 1920 and 1935. And so there are within this district 18 houses built within this period of time which share a lot of distinctive similarities in style and character. There are a handful of houses within this district that actually predate the Sebastiani cottages and are non-contributors, even though they're within the district. So here are examples of the kind of, small scale. There's the Sebastiani house itself, which is a much more, a larger and more elaborate version of the kind of restrained craftsman style that shows up in Sebastiani's cottages, as well as there are some colonial revival and some more whimsical period revival cottages as part of this district. The Broadway Street Historic District, as Christina mentioned, was previously found eligible in 2002. It hasn't been locally designated, but because of the time that has elapsed between when it was originally evaluated and found eligible and today, we had a look at the contributors to it, removed a couple of contributors that have been demolished and replaced by other buildings, and recommended addition of a couple of contributors based on the current condition of buildings at a couple of the edges of the district. Otherwise, in large part, it remains pretty much the same as was recommended in 2002, and includes a collection like the Sebastiani district of residential buildings. In this case, built between the late 19th century right up until the early 1940s, that have a variety of different styles, from Queen Anne, Victorian cottages, right up to the kind of period revival of the 1920s that are associated with Sonoma's growth as a residential and commercial center focused on very largely on the tourist economy. And so that's a quick flyby of kind of showing what the district boundaries are and the district contributors are. As you can see, each district has contributors and non-contributors. And in the case of each district, for example, the entire parcel is included within the district, which even though the contributors are considered to be the buildings that have a frontage along the street, that are visible from the public right-of-way. And so projects within the district that take place in the rear part of the lot, additional units, other kinds of alterations requiring permits on other parts of the parcels, may need review as well for compatibility with the district. In a lot of cases, they may or may not be even visible from the public right-of-way. Just quickly as a preview to what we're helping the city of Sonoma with next. As Christina mentioned, these districts are all within the historic overlay zone. And because the historic overlay zone for the purposes of SB 9 is being treated as a historic district, the treatment of these properties for SB 9 will not measurably change with the historic district designation. What we're working on in addition is identifying properties outside of the historic overlay zone, which are either already listed on the the city of Sonoma's inventory of historic resources, which only has a handful of properties outside of the historic overlay zone, but also identifying properties which have already been evaluated and found eligible by the city or by the Sonoma Valley Historical Society or the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation. And we will be working with the city of Sonoma to identify those that are appropriate for local designation as individual resources. As well, there are a couple of potential districts in this group of properties. You can see the kind of scattering of them outside of this gray area, which is the historic overlay zone. This map does not show individually eligible properties within the historic overlay zone. It would be a little too busy if we showed that. So that's just a very, very brief overview of what of how we evaluated the properties and defined the district boundaries. Hopefully that's helpful to kind of illustrate what these districts consist of on the ground.
Thank you so much. Questions? I'll continue. Oh, Dave,
Yep.
yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. David Storr. Stacy, you made a comment, and I just want to provide a little bit of clarification, and maybe there's some rippling effects. But in 2008, the city adopted a resolution that listed all of the resources that were of local importance to the city. And within that resolution, and I'll get the number wrong, I'm going to guess number 16 of 2008, but there or thereabouts. The point being is that in that resolution, it stated that should there be any properties that are not on this list but are later added to the state list or the national list, they become a local designation anyway. So does that make a difference with anything that you said today? But that is there, that's currently on the books, and we're in the process right now of taking that benchmark as staff from 2008 to figure out what has been added by the state and by the National Register so that we can figure out what our total list is of local historic resources. Thank you. Stacy?
Yeah, thanks, David. As part of our work with the city of Sonoma, we identified a small number of properties which are automatically listed by the mechanism which you mentioned. The city ordinance forming or the resolution which formed the inventory of historic resources within the city of Sonoma stipulates that anything recognized basically by the Office of Historic Preservation as a historic resource after the date of establishment of the inventory would then automatically be added to the inventory. There are outside of the historic overlay zone a small number of properties that are then automatically listed on the register due to their just by virtue of their having been found eligible, listed in the Built Environment Resource Directory that's issued by the Office of Historic Preservation. These resources need to go through a couple of levels of evaluation and then submittal of reports for the Office of Historic Preservation to pretty much add them to their inventory of sites and structures that are eligible for listing at certain levels. However, there are a couple. The short answer is yes, it is a relatively small number. And so to be able to designate other resources in the city of Sonoma that have been found eligible by local organizations but not yet designated requires casting a bit of a wider net than those that have already been designated.
Questions?
Yes, thank you. So and I love historic districts. I was on the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission when we first talked about the train district in 2016. So I think this is a great idea. I'm very excited about it. I just have a specific question. So for example, our Shell gas station on Broadway is in the Broadway Historic District. Clearly it is a non-contributing parcel.
Correct.
5 to 10 years from now, if someone wants to come and redevelop that site, by what standards is the Design Review Commission or the city measuring on how that new redeveloped project matches now the Broadway Historic District? Does the Secretary of Interior have standards? Do we have specific standards for the Broadway Historic District that we have to evaluate that project by? Like, how do the decision makers know if this new project is compatible with the Broadway Historic District?
Right. So because of its location within the historic overlay zone, the design review processes for infill within the historic zone will apply. The designation of the historic district is going to inform whomever the city hires as a consultant or whomever the project applicant hires as a consultant to evaluate the compatibility of that proposed development. The district designation and district description will provide context for being able to decide whether something is compatible. The historic overlay zone in itself is relatively large and encompasses a really great variety of different kinds of properties, from those surrounding the plaza to those down at the southern end of Broadway. There's a lot of different character throughout that area. This district designation, for example, will help because it describes the character defining features of the district. What are those aspects of it? The massing, the setback, the architectural styles that are characteristic of that district. Those will help the decision-making process for what is in fact compatible in an infill situation. The Secretary of the Interior standards, which you referenced, would primarily be used for projects that are rehabilitations of contributors for approaching actual historic buildings. They are less useful when looking at a non-contributing property within a district, because really only one standard that has to do with related new construction is really applicable to those kind of situations. And so what tends to happen is just a broader compatibility analysis according to the district's character defining features.
Okay. What I'm hearing, or what I think is true, is I don't think right now we do compatibility with the historic overlay zone. And so if you're a non-contributing parcel in a historic district now, there will be basically a consultant, perhaps Page and Turnbull, will come in and sort of determine whether it's compatible with this historic district. Because I agree, I mean, it's in the historic overlay zone, but I don't think we do compatibilities, or I haven't seen those before. I'm looking over here to see. Okay.
Yeah, there actually is. Yeah. There are guidelines in section 19.42.050, guidelines for infill development within the historic overlay zone, which includes site plan, including setbacks, architectural considerations such as infill structures should support the distinctive architectural character of development in the surrounding neighborhood, including building mass, scale, proportion, decoration, etc. And so there are existing within the municipal code for projects within the overlay zone that are infill projects regarding compatibility.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. More questions? Yeah. Yeah.
I'm out of my field here, but I do have a question, Stacy. What Vice Mayor Barnett was bringing up, does that mean that if you're in the district, in the overlay district that they're designated, so I buy a house that's so cute, and then I want to do something with it, I am prohibited from doing certain things because it's been designated as a historic building. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, it depends what things you want to do. It's, if you want to build a compatible addition, whether it's a vertical or a horizontal addition, it would be subject to review. That doesn't mean that it's prohibited. It just means that it needs to be reviewed for compatibility. You're going to, encounter a different level of review if you want to demolish that structure and replace it with something entirely new. But being within a historic district, being a contributor to a historic district, provides structure for evaluating projects, but it doesn't necessarily out of hand prohibit alteration. And so property owners within this district shouldn't feel like they are they are not able to change their properties. They're not able to change, windows or do basic maintenance or expand their square footage if they need to within the city's existing guidelines. So it is a constraint, but it is more constraint than prohibition.
So I came from an earthquake area and we had to sign papers that said, that one day this cliff may fall off and you could have no cliff across the street. So with respect to what you're offering, if I buy a house there, there should be some claim or some information of you're buying into this area and you're going to be just confined to doing certain things. Is that what I'm hearing?
And the historic overlay zone is already, the location of it and the zoning, the design review guidelines that apply within the historic overlay zone, which has existed in the city of
Guidelines.
Sonoma, are publicly available. And so that property buyers within that district can find that information. And it would behoove the city to include the district boundaries as well, for example, in its public GIS system, so that people that are researching properties can see, this is within the historic overlay zone, this is also within this locally designated district, so that they can make an informed decision.
Oh, okay, thank you. And we did live across the street from a cliff and 150 feet disappeared down to Thornton Beach. So I'm pretty sensitive to these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lowe, do you have any? All right. Okay, right now I'm open to public. Miss.
Thank you. Robert Demler, is this on?
Yes,
I
it's
will
on.
pick up where I left off. Actually, I started out participating in the Zoom meeting, and I knew this particular issue, a number of parties had contributed to it, and I looked at the room, and it looked pretty empty, and I didn't want you all to be too lonely looking at an empty room, so that's why I got in the car and came over late. This is a very important step forward for Sonoma. I'm very, very happy with all of the work that's been done by Paige and Turnbull and especially our city staff. And there's much more work to do, as your questions indicate. It would be wonderful to have some sort of flow chart for potential buyers and for potential renovators, if that's a word, to know what to do at what step that needs to be done. I've always thought that the realtors, and I've said this before at a meeting, should be more forthcoming with information when a potential historic property is in question for sale or remodel. We had a very nice discussion at the Design Review Historic Preservation Commission the other week, and they asked a lot of good questions, and we had a very fine discussion about this. So the League for the Sonoma League for Historic Preservation would be very happy to work with the city on developing any more guidelines. We've done so in the past, but I heartily recommend that this go forward, and I thank all of you for all of the good work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Shane. Thank you. Yes, that's fine. Any comments from the Zoom, please?
We have Fred Alabach.
Great.
Good evening, Mayor Ding. Good evening, Mayor Ding and members of the City Council and city staff. I have a couple of comments and questions. One is that during the first SB 9 hearing at the Planning Commission, it was specifically mentioned that historical designation could be a vehicle to avoid SB 9, that the consultant would look into that. So I found that a little bit troubling. And I saw from the map that about a third of the city is historically designated. So I would say that in the future, that this needs to be limited especially if it's a designation is part of an effort to avoid SB9. Now, I have a question for the consultant. Is that it's known that FHA loans in the Depression were government-backed loans that backed segregation in communities across the country. And so I see the Sebastiani Cottage District as built up until 1935. And so I wonder if any of the properties listed in the city that are historically designated were built when the FHA guidelines had the redlining and segregatory policies in place, and whether these are actually appropriate for historical designation, then I think that a good guideline for the city for historical designation that these should not be enshrined as special, but they should be should not government-backed segregation shouldn't be specially historically designated. For fourth point is that character is a concept that ends up being used to protect things against change. And so I wonder that in Broadway Historic District about Jack's Filling Station, if that plays into that. And then a final question for the consultant is that is compatibility really just all about facade? So that if you built something that looked historic, then that would be okay. So it's my understanding that at Jack's Filling Station, if they tore down the whole filling station but built another one up that looked just like it, that would be compatible. So those are some of my questions and comments. I'm particularly interested about the FHA era loans and whether those are appropriate for historical designations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alabak.
I'm happy to talk. Thank you, Mr. Alabak, for those really good questions. With respect to the history of the FHA loans, I think that is a really good question for the discipline of preservation at a much larger scale, very honestly, because the presence of both restrictive home lending practices as well as restrictive real estate covenants within the cities of California and across the United States has not adequately been covered in our historic preservation dialogue to date. And I think that what you're getting at is we need to have a bigger conversation about what we consider to be appropriate commemoration of these properties and how we need to be honest about the histories that are associated with them. That said, our evaluation of these districts didn't look into the categorization of these particular neighborhoods at that time, and that could be something absolutely that future research can look at. With respect to the question of compatibility, compatibility is, for one thing, incredibly subjective. But that said, recreating historic appearances is not necessarily the most desirable approach to compatibility. In cases of historic districts where we clearly have a bunch of residential buildings that display different historic characters from a few decades across the first half of the 20th century, we wouldn't really want, for example, if one of the non-contributing properties was demolished, we wouldn't want to build something that was falsely historical in its place. We would much rather see something that was visibly contemporary in design, but appropriate in scale, that didn't overshadow, for example, you wouldn't want to put an 8-story building at the corner where everything surrounding it is 2 to 3 stories or 1 story. So compatible in scale, compatible in materials, but also recognizable as new construction, because it's just as important in historic districts to recognize the changes that have happened as to maintain some of the character that is considered by a community to be important. There was a third question. Can somebody remind me what the third point was?
The third point was SB9, and I think I can comment on that about the
Sure.
timing and the district.
Thank you.
Yeah, this initiative had nothing to do with SB9. This initiative goes back to 2016. It has been a multi-year process. SB9 wasn't really on our radar until September, and by then we already had the scope of work done. We'd done the field work. It was, we were already well along in the process.
Plus, they're all within the historic overlay. So SB9
Correct, but the
would already not
reason
apply
for this
because it's
yeah.
within. It's not like we're adding properties to not apply to SB9. They already all don't.
Correct. I think it's
Yeah.
just the timing with these two initiatives is really the only reason they're getting connected.
All right. Yeah, looks like any more comments from public?
I don't see any more hands raised, Mayor Dean.
All right. Yeah, thank you. All right. Let's come back to council. More discussion.
At this point, I mean, I have certain idea of how I want to vote, but I yield to our planning commissioners who have a lot of experience. Is this premature?
Yeah.
As suggested?
I fully support introducing this ordinance to amend the code to add these three districts into the stable, if you would have it. It's appropriate to preserve what we have in Sonoma, and I think this is a wonderful way to do it, so I'm in support.
All right. That's great.
Yes,
Vice
thank you,
Mayor
Mayor Dan. I concur with Councilman Felder. I think creating historic districts within our existing historic overlay is a very good thing for Sonoma. Our history is a very important part of our local, local pride. It's also an important part of our local economy. I think our history brought people to Sonoma before we were wine country, and I think that we need to recognize that. Again, I was on the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission in 2016 when we first started talking about the historic train district. And so in the future, if we do create more historic districts, I hope they don't take 6 years. And I guess even 20 if we're talking about the Broadway and the Sebastiani district. But I think this is a great start, and I really want to thank Paige and Turnbull, and especially our city staff, and Wendy, and David, and Christina. I think this is excellent work. I do support the Design Review Commission's recommendation that we create signage for these districts as you're entering them. Perhaps with the League for Historic Preservation and the Historical Society and our city website, we can also highlight these districts. Before the signage is created, I would like that to be run by the Design Review and Commission, and perhaps us as well. I think at some point we need a unified sort of theme when it comes to Sonoma signage. I think we've made great strides with our new street signs and all that, but we need, cohesive and branding. In response to Fred Allebach's thoughts, I thought he had some interesting points and interesting questions, specifically in relation to the FHA. All of these districts, their periods of significance end by 1935, which the FHA loan started being administered after 1935, and so I would assume that they what he was concerned about don't exist. At least the contributing structures within these districts don't exist. And specifically the Sebastiani cottage, the proposed Sebastiani cottage historic district, I think I would love Sonoma to learn more about the history of that district. From what I understand, those homes were built as rental homes by Samuele Sebastiani, who was an immigrant to Sonoma. He was an immigrant. He started a winery, and he built rental homes for his workers to live near the winery. And I think that is a initiative worth celebrating and memorializing. And I think Fred would also agree with that as well. So I am happy to support this.
Thank you.
No, I think the work is done. Seems top rate, and I think people who come to Sonoma should know about the history of Sonoma. I think that's so much a part of who we are. So the more that we can define it and create areas of interest for people, the better. And so thank you. Happy to support this.
Thank you. Also, I'm so glad to see this project. It has been taking 6 years. Yeah, actually, congratulations. What we are doing, I'm so glad because everybody in here just like an advocate and historic carry over, the and storyteller because same material and wood and the brick, but if you have the story behind it, just like the Vice Mayor and Bonanna said, that is a different. That is the value of our city. So another thing I want to mention is each and a single and the building's owner maybe and they will get more education from our city. And for example, what is the restriction SB 9 and why you are not allowed to build additional one. These kind of education also is really important. In this way, an individual owner and when work with our city, local city government, preserve this wonderful history and then build our community better. I want to fully support. Thank you. Looks like we were, if any more, yeah. Motion.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
More discussion? Councilmember Felder? No? All right. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you so much. Let's move to on the next one. That is the public hearing 5.2. Discussion, consider, and take possible action to introduce an ordinance amending the Sonoma Municipal to add section 19.41 relating to ministry residential projects in residential zoning districts and section 19.72 related to ministry the parcel and maps for urban lot splits and finding that this action is not the project under Division 13 of the Republic and the Resolution Code. All right, and the staff.
Yeah, once
Any
again, I'm
more
going to turn this over
discussion, or
to
do-
Christina.
Thank
Please,
you.
thank you.
And Latonya, can I trouble you to share the presentation again? All right, hopefully we have this worked out a little bit better this time. So this is a continuation of our discussion and work to address SB 9 in the city of Sonoma. Just a quick reminder, SB 9, which went into effect on January 1st of this year, requires that cities and all jurisdictions ministerially approve 2-unit housing developments, 2 homes on an existing single-family parcel, as well as an urban lot split, which is a one-time subdivision of an existing single-family residence into 2 parcels. SB 9 requires that approvals only be based on objective standards and cannot preclude construction of 2 units of approximately 800 square feet, and denials are only permitted if the projects do not meet objective standards or if there are specific adverse impacts on public health and safety. There are also limitations on how jurisdictions can regulate SB 9 projects, including setbacks, parking requirements, and requirements that attached buildings must be allowed. So the City Council passed an urgency ordinance to address SB 9 on December 15th, 2021. The urgency ordinance went into effect immediately on December 15th and will remain in effect until a regular ordinance removes it. The proposed regular ordinance before City Council this evening would add 2 sections to the Sonoma Municipal Code, Section 1941, which is related to ministerial residential projects in residential zoning districts, and establishes standards for new development on an existing lot, and Section 1972, related to ministerial parcel maps for urban lot splits, which establishes standards for landowners that wish to split their existing parcel into two and develop those lots. The applicable zoning districts for the urgency ordinance are the same as the proposed regular ordinance, which is all city zoning districts that allow single-family residential development. That would be in our residential hillside, residential rural, residential low density, and residential Sonoma zoning district. The Planning Commission has been heavily involved in this process, and no different from our regular ordinance. On January 13th of 2022, the Planning Commission reviewed the urgency ordinance at a study session and provided direction to staff that they were recommended amending the maximum unit size to be able to exceed 800 square feet. The urgency ordinance has a cap on the size of 800 square feet. And so the recommendation by Planning Commission was to allow the size to increase as long as it met the floor area ratio standard. The Planning Commission reviewed the proposed regular ordinance on February 10th, and at that time they just had one minor clarification. There was one sentence in section 1941-151, which states any part of the building of one unit may not be closer than 6 feet from the nearest part of another building. So in the draft before City Council this evening, that sentence has been stricken. And with that modification, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of the regular ordinance. And that is what is before the City Council this evening. So the proposed regular ordinance would allow units to be less than 800 square feet or larger than 800 square feet, provided that they meet the floor area ratio standard. There's no minimum size, and that's one issue that was identified early on in the process, that we wanted to make sure if somebody wanted a 700 square foot unit that they would be allowed. It maintains the 1-story and 18-foot maximum height limit and must meet all of our existing objective standards, and still includes the deed restriction for affordable housing. And what this really does is prohibit a duplex from being converted into a large market rate house later on down the line. It has income limits for potential buyers and eliminates the market demand for second home buyers. So the next step is to potentially introduce the ordinance today, and will be followed up for adoption potentially on March 16th, 2022. And the ordinance would be effective 30 days after that, which if adopted on the 16th would be April 15th. And at that point, the urgency ordinance would be repealed. Our recommendation is to introduce the ordinance amending the codes, and I believe our city attorney has some comments as well.
Thank you, Christina. I just have two tweaks to the ordinances before you tonight. One tweak is to add a section at the very end that actually does repeal the urgency ordinance when this ordinance becomes effective. We don't have language that actually does that. I'll read that language to the council when we get to the point of acting on it. Second of all, I'd like to suggest that in section 1941.150, it states that if the application of an objective standard actually precludes construction of up to 2 units, each possessing no greater than 800 square feet in size, then that objective standard must be waived. As it reads now, the entire standard would need to be waived. I'm suggesting you add language that simply says, waived to the extent required to accommodate said construction. So, for example, if there's a setback requirement that would be otherwise applicable that precludes construction of 2 homes of at least 800 square feet, but waiving, as I said, let's assume it's a 4-foot setback requirement, just waiving 2 feet of that setback requirement would accommodate 2 800 square foot homes. The city would only have to waive 2 feet of that 4-foot setback, not the entire setback. That's the purpose of the language I'm suggesting. So that would be left to the discretion of the planning director analyzing the standard in question and determining how much of it would need to be waived.
All right. Yeah. Question? Any more presentation or? Okay. Right now, question from our council. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I have 2 questions that follow up on that. For example, like the 4-foot setback is the minimum setback as the state, we can't go any. If we want to retain that 4-foot setback, I thought the whole point was they could go to a second story if they can't do it within the parameters, correct?
Yeah, I think the modification that we're
Like I would rather go to a second story than a 1-foot setback, for example.
I think the standard that we're talking about is the standard to the regular. It's a change from the regular setback. So in some instances, maybe it's an 8-foot. And so instead of automatically going to the 4-foot, maybe it's 6 feet. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does, but that's not what I heard. Or, I mean, what you just said I like, but I, yeah.
That's what I thought you were saying anyway.
Yeah. I don't, that's not what I heard the first time, though.
Our ordinance reads, for example, setbacks from the side and rear yard shall be no less than 4 feet. No less than 4 feet. So if that particular setback requirement.
But there's so many different standards at play here, and so.
Absolutely true. I think we need to see how this works.
Okay.
I don't think there's any way for us to sit down and craft an ordinance that addresses, because I think I could envision 3 or 4 objective standards that collectively would preclude construction of
Right.
one or both of these 800 square foot buildings. So which one is to be waived? How much of each one is to be waived? Let's sort of see how it unfolds. I think it should be left to the planning director's discretion, see what kind of pushback we get, see what kind of standard objectives are actually being problematic, and we can come back and amend the ordinance to accommodate those issues down the line.
Well, would a simple change of verbiage be helpful in this, which would give the planning director the discretion? If you changed it to compliance with that objective standard, instead of saying shall be waived, say may be waived.
Well,
I realize that doesn't make it objective, but
the problem with that is that the state law says it has to be waived. State law reads,
Misinterpreted.
the city shall not impose objective zoning standards, objective subdivision standards, and objective design standards that would have the effect of physically precluding yada, yada, yada. So it says that we shall not impose at all
But
these standards.
I thought we could impose
all we're
4.
trying to do is we're trying to preserve the 4-foot setback, which allows us to then change another standard which says you can go 2 stories rather than 1 story to achieve that size of a dwelling unit.
Yeah,
I thought the law said we
I
could do.
appreciate that. That's just one instance of an objective standard being problematic. So how many more can we think of?
Well, but this one is staring us in the face right now. And it's one that I would not want to see people take advantage of before we could change it. Because when you're dealing with minimum setbacks, 4 feet is not very much. And if you reduce that where you're putting something close to the property line, that to me is totally against what SB 9 is trying to do.
I'm trying to think of a better way to handle this, because may, it means it doesn't need to be observed. If it's may waive, that's in direct violation of the state law that says it must be.
No, I agree. Yeah.
So
Well, okay, so that doesn't work,
solution won't
but
work. We need to come up with something else. Maybe.
Is the intent that you could go less than 4?
No. Oh, yeah, if you go less than 4, yeah. Councilmember Felder believes that the 4-foot setback is one of those that should never be waived. So that's the sense I'm getting. It's just so small. That's gold, and that thing has to be just, no matter what.
yes,
that
we're
one has to be
willing
observed.
to allow you to go up rather than out, is what it amounts to.
That's one
If
of
you
the,
can't satisfy it,
Yeah.
within 4.
Yeah, and well, another requirement is on-site parking space. How golden is that? And what do we do with that if that in fact is precluding building 2 structures?
I'm not wedded to a parking space. That's not, I mean, I feel like, and I don't think this is working. There it just went. I'm sorry, I fixed it. That, I think the parking space is something that I could certainly live without. I think it's more important to have the residents than the parking space. I know in my neighborhood, everyone parks on the street anyway, and they don't even use their parking space, and much to my chagrin from time to time. But that's their right to do so. And then hopefully people will be using alternate forms of transportation in the future. So I'm not wedded to the parking space piece. I'm curious if the 4-foot setback conversation and the second story piece means that you'd be comfortable with going to a second story, because isn't there a prohibition on that in here?
There is, unless if you can't fit two 800 square foot units
Okay.
within the lot, you can go to the second.
But in some cases, it might be desirable anyway. You know, in other words, we shouldn't have to say like, oh, you can only do a second story if you know, all these other things are problematic. It may look better on the site to have a second story than to you know, say, yeah, we just made it, we're at 4 foot 1 inch. You know, we've made all the you know, we've met all the things, but if it went second story, it might actually look better than jamming two residents into one parcel. So I don't know, I'm a little uncomfortable with that.
If I may, through the mayor.
Yes.
I think that the problem here is neighborhood compatibility, and we're trying to preserve. This is a situation where you don't have any discretionary approval allowed.
Right.
So you're trying to preserve the compatibility with the guy who lives on this lot next to this development, who is now faced with something going up within 4 feet of his property line. And if that is going to be a two-story structure, it's effectively putting up a wall right next to his property.
But we're allowed to do that now. People are adding second stories to their
Not
homes now.
within 4 feet.
No, I agree with you on the 4 foot thing. I'm just saying, yeah.
So I don't want to just say you can just arbitrarily allow 2 stories and stay within the 4 foot setback. You'd have to have a good reason to go to a second story if you're within that 4 foot or at that 4 foot setback. And the good reason is you can't possibly fit it on the lot any other way.
Davey?
Yeah, thank you. The Planning Commission had considerable discussion about the issue of size and massing and neighborhood compatibility. And thinking on the fly here, we could maybe perhaps craft language that talks about a prioritization of what is waivable and get to that point. I feel somewhat uncomfortable doing that on the fly. An option would be to have Jeff and Christina go in the back room for about an hour, and then we still may not get it on the fly to come up with the right language. I'd prefer that we continue the item because we do have the security blanket, if you will, of the urgency ordinance. So I would suggest at this point that if after more discussion, we get more feedback, we may be able to embody that and return to your council. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that, you know, this was just, to me, for discussion, and the idea is to throw out these ideas, because I know on the urgency, we threw out some ideas, and I want to say, I'm happy to see the mandatory 800 square feet go away and have it more flexible with the size of the lot. I think, so I want to thank everybody for that, but, and, I mean, I still have questions about some of these other things, like the basement, you know, is back, but it's included in the square footage, and it doesn't change the footprint, and I don't think that's necessarily, I mean, I don't think people are building that many basements in California, but, you know, in the event that they are, it doesn't change the look from the outside, and I don't see it counting against the square footage, if possible. I had some questions about the earthquake parts of it, the earthquake areas. Is there a map that shows what those areas are right now? So if we're not allowing people to add in those areas, they're, you know, what are they? Am I living on one? I mean, I want to know.
Those are called earthquake fault zones, EFZs or EFZs.
Uh-huh.
Those are the old former Alquist Priolo. We're not near one.
Oh, okay. So that was in there, but it doesn't apply to us.
It's one of the areas, there's about 10 different things, whether it's wetlands or other things where SB 9 is not applicable. Within earthquake fault zones, it's not applicable.
It's not applicable. Okay. Good. Thank you.
Mayor Ding?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
have one more question.
Yeah, sure.
I actually really like what David suggested. Like, let's talk about this and then, maybe look at this at the next meeting again. And so before that next meeting, I would also like to ask about what Council Member Lowe just mentioned about the 800 square foot prohibition going away if it is within the FAR, correct? Is that how you described it? So what controls in terms of getting to the second story? You know how it was like you could only go to the second story if you couldn't fit the 800 within the envelope, but if you can fit 1200 within the FAR, but you can't do it in a single story, do you get to go to a second story? Like, how are we dealing with that?
I would say yes to that question.
Yes to if you can't fit your 1200 square foot within the FAR in a single story structure, you can go to a second story.
Correct.
Is that what the Planning Commission intended? Was that the legislative
I
intent?
don't know if I remember that specific discussion.
Okay, because I would like to talk about that too.
Yeah, they certainly were endorsing a notion that you could have more than 800 square feet if the FAR applied to that site allowed that.
In a single story, I would assume, or
I think we could add some language to the height section to clarify that.
I mean, again, the goal is this is all over the counter and ministerial, and we need to obviously abide by the state law, but we also want to encourage to, again, Councilwoman Lowe's point, sometimes a second story might make more sense, and you could have a larger structure, and if it went through a just brief discretionary process, we could like ask the window to not look over your neighbor's yard and screen it, and in my view, our discretionary process in Sonoma works quite well. And this is just all over the counter, and so,
Above that big.
yeah.
Yeah, that. There's a sentence actually that addresses that issue, and the commission, I think intentionally, decided that if application of the FAR could not be accommodated in a single-story structure, then a two-story structure would be allowed. If you take a look at page 11 of the ordinance in your packet, under the category height, these are the objective development standards. Under height, the fourth line says, if application of an objective standard would have the effect of physically precluding a unit from being built on the parcel as a one-story structure, a two-story structure shall be allowed. I think that can be read to include that if in fact you're entitled to let's assume it's a 1,200 square foot structure because of the FAR for that site, but only 800 feet with all the objective standards would be allowed with a single-story structure. You're allowed to pop it up to 2 stories.
But yeah, so it might be 1,200 within the FAR, which would be 2,400 if it's a duplex, but you could have a 1,600 square foot single story. But anyway, we have to talk about that one.
Yeah.
The danger you get into is that the FAR rules were based on setbacks that are far in excess of 4 feet. So you're now allowing a ministerial approval of something within a 4-foot setback that would totally not be allowed in the standard development under discretionary use permits.
I don't know if that's how FARs are developed, but I
Well,
defer to your expertise.
there is no 4-foot setback in the standard code. It's 7 or 8 feet at least.
I thought FARs are based on the gross square footage of the
Yes,
site.
but they're in combination with a setback that is larger than 4 feet. It's the question of putting up something which amounts to a high wall right next to a property line, as opposed to setting it back off the property line.
I think what Councilmember Felder is saying is those numbers that were established as a fixed number were in proportion to the whole site and the zoning district. But by allowing now a 4-foot increase or decrease, because the number gets smaller to 4 feet, where you normally have 7, you get down to a 4, those FARs have been expanded, if you will. Is that pretty much what you're saying? Because those numbers were rather large, but it was based on a different footprint. of
And
the
then-
setbacks.
And then we also have provisions for a step back on that second story. So the second story can't be at that 5 foot or 7 foot. It has to be step back even more.
But with SB 9, we don't have step backs on the second story.
I think,
There's a different number based on the height, I think. I think what I'm hearing is what we ought to do is maybe come back with some examples within those four or five districts so we can show you how it plays out relative to the FAR.
I'm not in a rush to pass the regular ordinance. I want to get it right.
I think we're basically giving ourselves a week to come back in 2 weeks.
But it's a
So,
start.
yeah, it's a start. Let's come back when we've got plenty of breadth, width there to be able to do this right, and we'll come up with some map examples, if you will.
Thank you.
And I was just going to thank member of the public, David Eicher, for contributing to this, and I see he wants to speak. So he highlighted some of this for us.
That's great. So if there are no any further questions, I want to open to public. Well, you. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So on the landscaping, I like it. I like trees, all that. Is that a requirement now? Okay, so these are identical requirements that we're not adding anything new that wouldn't be normally there. Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Oh, I forgot. Did you receive any application last time when we passed the urgency in the ordinance, and there were the 2 applicants, and if any?
no, we had a couple inquiries really early on, but I haven't
Okay.
had anybody inquire about them.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Right now, I'm open to public. Nobody here in person, in the chamber.
We have
Yeah.
2 hands raised. In
All
the
right.
room.
Yeah, please.
David Eicher's up first.
Yeah, David Eichers.
Hello, yes, David Eicher, thank you. I think, I hate to say this, but I believe the city attorney, Mr. Walters, is incorrect about one very important thing, is that the 4-foot setback does not have to be waived. And he read a little bit from SB 9. The local agencies shall not impose objective subdivision standards, etc. Effective physically precluding the construction of up to 2 units of at least 800 square feet in floor area. What later on in paragraph 2, subparagraph B is this, II, notwithstanding subparagraph A, in all circumstances not in clause 1, or I, excuse me, where I pertains to rebuilding on existing structures. A local agency may require a setback up to 4 feet from the side and rear lots. So, my cat's getting in the way of my screen. So, subparagraph 2A is subordinated to subparagraph 2BII. In other words, the 4-foot setback requirement does not have to be waived in order to allow at least 800 square feet a unit. So, and the same goes to in terms of one off-street parking, but it sounds like you may want to waive off-street parking anyway, which would be fine. And it looks like possibly that Mr. Walters did not get my email to actually look on this analyze. And please tell me where I get wrong that notwithstanding subparagraph A, I mean in spite of or regardless, so the 4-foot setback does not have to be waived. It should be up in the other area, like with the historical areas or things like that. And also on the ADUs, in the first section, it says that ADU are not allowed. In the second section, have to build lot splits. It says you also have to apply for as a second residential unit. So I'm not sure, does all of the first section apply if you're only doing a lot split and just not putting 2 residential units on each? So in other words, if you do a lot split and only put 1 residential unit on each, are you then precluded from adding an ADU? It sounds like that to me, but why would you not want an ADU opposed to this, which has other restrictions on setbacks. And finally, he said something about the owner can terminate the two residential development via procedure set forth in this chapter. However, there is no termination procedures within the chapter. So thank you.
Mr. Walter can correct me, but as a result of the lot split provision, the resultant lots, you get 2 units on each. If you choose to put a new home there on an ADU, that's your 2. Or you can put 2 ADUs on there if you want. That's your 2. So the net result is 2 and 2, however you slice and dice it. Thanks. Mr. Walter, you concur with that?
Yeah, that's my understanding of our ordinance. The goal was to avoid building 4 single-family homes and then getting an ADU attached to each of those 4. You'd end up with 8. That's what is being addressed here.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any more public comments?
Yes, Mayor Ding. We have Fred Alabak next.
Yes, please. Yeah. Mm.
Hello again, Mayor Ding and City Council and City staff. As I'm looking at SB 9 here, the intent is to bulk up the infill and to create more units during state housing crisis in a limited space. And so density is the goal of SB 9, and only 4% of units are going to go SB 9. So I think that what Steve Barbeau said earlier on in the Planning Commission, that the sky's not falling here, that that try to let SB 9 do what it was intended to do. I think the thesis that's come out of this is that the current ordinance basically postulates that affordable by design units are impossible in Sonoma. That Bill Willers said a 700 square foot house sold for $700,000 near him. So that if you can't do SB 9 and have these things be affordable by design to millennials and people who are in the missing middle, then this has ramifications for the housing element. And if the market can't create 50% of the RENA allocation, then there's going to have to be programs in place to show how that these will be built for the 6 cycle housing element. I was troubled by the whole process of taking the subjective language and the Housing Accountability Act, and what came out was, initially at least, was values of protectionism that was troubling expression of community values that had the identical phrasing that's racially coded dog whistles. So that was troubling to me as part of this process initially. But I realize also that there is an issue with second homes and speculators and running up the price here. So this leads me to my next point, is the affordable housing requirement for this SB 9. I don't see any kind of feasibility analysis to show that the affordable housing requirements will actually pencil out, and that an investment that someone would make would be paid back with the level of rents that someone would get with these affordable housing requirements. So that looks to me like what I've been calling the green checkmate pattern. There's a bulwark put up against growth, but then it makes infill impossible as well. So I'm concerned that with this SB 9 ordinance, that it's set up so that nothing will happen, when the whole intent of SB 9 is to allow more dense infill so that will address the housing crisis. So I realize that this is kind of a rock and a hard place. You've got market sharks on one hand, and you have troubles with building affordable housing that with high materials costs. But I would like to see this somehow finessed in SB 9 so that that the missing middle housing could possibly be made, or if indeed, if it can't be made, then I think that does have serious ramifications for the housing element. And then also, the very word compatible is completely subjective. And here we're talking about making it compatible with a neighborhood that illustrates some of the problems with the Housing Accountability Act here and making the subjectivities objective. So
That's time.
thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Alabak.
Next, we have Calum Weeks from Generation Housing.
All right. Helen, it's your turn.
Yes, Mayor Ding, Vice Mayor Barnett, council members and staff. My name is Cal Weeks, and I'm the policy director with Generation Housing. I want to start by first thanking Councilmember Lowe for raising one of the things that has long frustrated me, really from the outset of this conversation, this process, related to the two stories, and this was certainly stated by the previous speaker, Mr. Alabak, but two stories, or SB 9, generally speaking, was designed to create gentle density in our neighborhoods. And in effect, what we are doing is we are watering down this law, watering down its true intent. And there's really nothing wrong, in our opinion, when it comes to two stories. There's no significant impact, no real alteration or adverse, health issue that might stem from two stories. So I would just strongly encourage that greater consideration be given to a flexible option where you can choose one or two stories. And I'd also like to I think, emphasize, what Mr. Alabak just noted. I understand we're in a difficult situation. You're trying to create speculation, you're trying to prevent speculation. It's a long-standing issue, not just in the city of Sonoma, but in the broader Sonoma County, and I totally understand that. But there's got to be a way where we can really drill down into this more. And you'll have to forgive me, and maybe Christina can illuminate this for me, but I don't see any specificity as to what these units will be deed restricted to, and is it going to apply to all 4 units, or is it going to be 2 units are going to be one level and 2 units are going to be another? I just don't see any specificity, and I was just hoping that could be perhaps further discussed before you proceed to next steps. Thank you very much. As always, I do appreciate your service and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Any more public comments?
There are
Tanya?
no more hands raised, Mayor Ding.
No. Okay. Dave, your turn.
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple of comments before we wrap it up. Again, at this point, I'd recommend that you continue it to April the 20th, because we do have a lot of other things coming to be introduced and then adopted. That would be my recommendation. But I do want to address a couple of comments that were made by the last 2 speakers. Number one, the 4% that Mr. Alabak referenced was a number that was generated from the Turner Center with respect to its thinking as to how many units in any given jurisdiction will be coming online as an SB 9 unit. The field is white and it's ready to harvest, for lack of a better pun, or comment, meaning that we're going into uncharted territory, and the goal is to build SB 9 units. Relative to the RENA, these units will be looked at for the first time during this element that we're in right now, and then more importantly in the 6th element. So right now we could be building SB 9 units that we would add into the last couple of years of this 5th cycle. But the catch with HCD is that for the 6th cycle, we're going to have to come up with a number, just like we do for ADUs. We generally know that there's about a dozen or so per year. So when it comes to meeting that 311, we're going to have to explain to HCD why we think there's going to be X number, whatever that number is. We have to come up with the damn good reason, so to speak, to justify why we think an SB 9 number of units will be applicable through that 8-year cycle of the 6th cycle. With respect to the affordability, we have taken it very seriously as a staff that the governor wants to build housing that's affordable. And he's used the little a as opposed to the capital A. We've taken it to one step further, and that is we want to ensure that these SB 9 units are affordable to people that are worst impacted by the housing crisis. And so that means we've put a segment away for those that are in the low and moderate income categories. And Christina can correct me if I'm wrong. So we've actually deed restricted them for that very reason. As far as state law goes, the city of Sonoma is perfectly within its right to exercise its independent thinking with respect to coming up with its own standards for its community. So, and that's what we have done, but as long as you don't violate X, Y, and Z, and they've got this box, and that's what we as staff have ensured would not happen with respect to the numbers, so to speak. And then, Christina, we can perhaps address the issue of which units will be deed restricted. I'm not remembering it off the top of my head, whether it's all resultant units. My guess is it probably is. Any new unit as a result of the implementation of these two code sections would be required to be deed restricted. That concludes my comments.
Thank you.
May I ask?
Yeah, Vice Mayor.
Planning Director Storr, if a property owner does not want to deed restrict their units, but they want to split their lot and perhaps build a duplex, there's nothing stopping them from applying to do that through the standard discretionary process.
That is correct.
And the deed restrictions would not apply.
That would be correct, yes.
Correct. Okay, thank you.
But to the extent, in theory, they would be required to dedicate 25% of their units on that vacant lot, if you will, to affordable housing, because we're talking not
So they would
about
have to pay into a fund if they couldn't do that.
Right. It
Right.
depends on the number of units on a given property.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? Yeah. Councilmember.
No, please,
Oh,
go
okay.
ahead.
I was just going to make a motion to
Oh,
continue.
well, yes.
Yeah. Before,
I'm
yeah,
happy
you
with
can
that.
talk.
If Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor, if I may
definitely.
just ask a question, it's more a process question. So the comments that you heard tonight, they'll go back to staff, to the planning commission. Can you just kind of sort of tell us like what the process is going to be before we, before Mr. Felder makes his motion, which I'll be happy to second, I'm sure.
I think what we'll do is we'll exercise some discretion on staff's part to determine if indeed it implicates anything that the planning commission discussed
Okay.
in the totality of the things that we've heard tonight. And I'll make a judgment call as to whether to refer it back to the planning commission. Of course, again, we want to make sure that we get it right. And luckily, we have, I think, a year on the urgency, or is it urgency indefinite?
It's indefinite.
So we'll get it right.
That's great.
Let's get it right. Thank you.
So in this way, Sue, we don't need to make any motion tonight, right?
Just to
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, continue it,
Before you
yes.
do that, are all the council members complete with their comments and questions?
Mm-hmm, yeah. I haven't to make the comments here. Yeah, I want to say something. First of all, I'm feeling very good for our, making the ordinance for the SB 9, because from the last time we have an urgent ordinance, and right now, timely, seamless. And I'm the UGB and the advocate. The UGB last year, and we got approved 79%. So that is my, the big credit for the local community. When I'm promoting UGB, I always, tell the people why we should increase our density in the city limit. So I always told the people. So right now, SB 9, it's a really, really good opportunity for us. So if we can consider more comments from the public, for example, the Arabak and Mr. Eicher, and they have the more inputs, yeah, we can listen. And although they said, it's subjective, I believe if we have the more and more subjective ideas, if we can put together, that is an objective. So that is I'm thinking. So if possible, we do a little bit flexible and favorable and the treatment when we make these kind of law. It's very important. But overall, I don't think SB 9 will change our local small towns character, because the number is kind of still small. That is my comments. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Should I be making this to a date certain, April 20th, or does it matter?
Yeah, I think that'll be helpful. It saves us on the cost of advertising, which is not cheap
Okay.
these days. And my point would be that if there's a need to go back to the planning commission, we can continue it on April the 20th too. So
Okay.
again, that gives us the discretion to go there.
All right, I would like to make a motion that we continue this item to introduce the ordinance adding to sections 1941 and 1972 to a date certain of April 20th, 2022.
Second that.
Thank you. We have the motion second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Mayor Dean.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Before we go to next item, I would like to have the 5 minutes break. Is okay? Yeah, all right. All right, let's continue. That is agenda number 6, regular calendar. 6.1, discuss, consider, and provide direction to the staff on purpose, composition, and the duties, responsibilities of the Community Service and the Environment Commission as founded in Sonoma Municipal Code, Chapter 2.48, and scope of the tree committee's authority found in Chapter 12.08 of Sonoma Municipal Code. I would like to ask City Manager Sue, give us a background,
Okay.
And the day
Great.
story.
So Mayor Ding and City Council, so last September 10th, the City Council held an annual retreat to discuss priorities and goals for the upcoming year. And one of the priorities for Council was to review the roles and responsibility of City Commissions and committees. And specifically, the Council wanted to reevaluate the Design Review and Historic Preservation Commission, the DRHPC, Community Service and Environmental Commission, CSEC, the Traffic Safety Commission, and the Tree Committee. And tonight, as mentioned previously, we're really focusing on the CSEC and the Tree Committee. So on January 12th, a joint City Council CSEC meeting was held to discuss the current and future role responsibilities of the CSEC. And based on the discussions of the joint meeting, the City Council directed the CSEC to further discuss matters and make recommendations to the City Council as needed. And at its February 9th meeting, the CSEC provided its recommendations to City Council. Planning Director Storer, myself, and staff, we've been brainstorming and have reviewed recommendations of the CSEC, and with Council direction are proposing the changes that are outlined in the staff report. And Planning Director Storer is going to provide a PowerPoint for us to kind of go through the changes, and he has a nice graphic on what we're proposing.
Thank you, Sue. Mayor, council members, I think it's clear to see that with respect to at least the last 3 years, the CSEC has kind of gravitated towards more of being an environmental commission relative to climate action activities, which are very important to our city, perhaps for the right reasons. But what's clear to me in the review of the purpose of the CSEC is that they don't just have the natural environment to deal with, if you call climate action part of the natural environment. I kind of see it a little bit differently, and staff certainly is of the opinion that it's important to perhaps have a separate committee, if you will, to deal with climate action, but then to refocus the CSEC, if you will, to embroider and join the activities of the Tree Committee. So if we can go to the next slide, please, Sue. You can see here that the CSEC is responsible for parks, recreational facilities, open space, and the natural environment. Next, please. And you can see that within those duties and responsibilities, there's mostly items that deal with the plaza, for example. You can see the preservation of habitat, tree protection, and the like. And then I think towards the middle, towards the end, you'll see policy direction is being provided, and this will be to your city council to do that. And the recommendation that we have as staff is to not only, one, create the Climate Action Committee, that we can have our sustainability coordinator worked with specifically, which is basically why we hired him, to focus on that and less on administrative duties or responsibilities relating to the Joint Council Climate Action Committee and also the CSEC. The role of the CSEC would be renamed to perform the functions that you see in the purpose statement of the CSEC, and that is to deal with parks, recreational facilities, and open space. Call it the PROS. We're not married to that, but call it what it is, so to speak, so that it's less on the environmental. I think the word environment is somewhat subjective, and I think that's perhaps why it gravitated to dealing with climate action. But again, the focus should be on climate action in the future, and so there's this rebranding, if you will, calling this new committee the PROS committee. With respect to that, though, you'll see in the staff report that we've talked about making some modifications to the duties and responsibilities to have special events which are permitting issues, not policy issues, be with the city manager's office. And that would be with Lisa working with Sue when it comes to the actual issuance of permits for special events. And then also in policy number 8, or subject number 8, line item number 8, we would specify that climate action committees are not within the purview of the new PROS or the CSEC, whatever the branding is. One of the other things too is that when you add the duties of the tree committee to this new committee, you would be taking from it the review of projects, review of tree reports by arborists, but the PROS or the CSEC, whichever we brand it, they would be doing the homeowner tree removal applications. The committee, the CSEC, when it met, did support the creation of a climate action committee, and also the tree committee duties being trimmed, for lack of a better joke, thank you very much, to have I know, I'll be here all week, to have just homeowner applications done by the new committee, if you will, and that the planning commission would have the full arborist reports for development projects. This is consistent with SB 330. Again, CSEC supported that particular process. We would come back, should your council support the recommendation of staff tonight, with the mechanics of how we go through the duties and responsibilities, not only of the Climate Action Committee, but the recommendations from the CSEC to provide budget for the Climate Action Committee during our next budget cycle. And we could also come back and revise the special events policy to be in alignment with our recommendations. One thing that I need to apologize for, there's an error on one of my diagrams that came with your package. We did state in the staff report correctly to have 5 members of the Climate Action Committee instead of 7. This is in the PowerPoint that you have, but hopefully not in the one that I have. Next, please. Next one, please. Next one. There we go. I'm praying that orange balloon says 5, and those will be direct appointments. Those will be direct appointments. The one in the packet mistakenly had 7 in there, but with respect to the PROS, they would actually have 7 members. 5 would be direct appointments by your council, with an at-large student and an at-large arborist that would be non-voting. With the CAC, the Climate Action Committee, they would have direct appointments by your council. There were other recommendations from the CSEC at their meeting, but they can be deferred to a point should your council create this new process, if you will, or procedure process organization. And we can come back and address those either here, or we can have the new committee address them as they begin their formulation and as we create the duties and responsibilities. And this concludes staff's report. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Felder.
Just a quick one. So if we form these new committees, I'm assuming that if you're suggesting that they have appointments by each of the individual council members, would we go through the process we have in the past where we solicit for applications to join these committees, and then we get a list and we go through some kind of a rotation to select people?
Yes.
Okay.
And when would that take place?
Well, it would really depend on your action tonight. We'll get on our bicycle and try to make it as fast as we can. The other thing too is I forgot to mention, we anticipate that these will be quarterly meetings of these two bodies, unless there's direction from the council otherwise. Again, we can put that into the duties and responsibilities. I'm guessing probably take maybe about a month or so to put this together.
Oh, yeah. The Parks and Recreation, does that have anything to do with is it Measure M, which is the Parks and Rec?
Yes, there is
So is there some type of
well, actually, I met with the Parks and Recreation Task Force today, the two members of them, and just, we talked about it, and we've actually, went over Measure M and found, because part of what they want to do is use some Measure M money if they can. And so, we're taking that all into account. I don't know that this would be under, pros, that task force was going to present, what they had accomplished so far to the CSEC. Could be done the same way with the parks or the pros. I'm going to call them the pros. So that they would make a presentation on what they've done so far. And that's what they were going to do with the CSEC as well. So.
the Measure M? I'm really happy to hear that because I thought there were oversight.
There is an oversight board, but there is, we do get funding every year, and so, depending on, we haven't allocated all the funding. The funding is we have received it, we just haven't allocated all the funding, and so we could do part of that during the budget process.
Oh, because I thought maybe we'd see little something. Here, we're doing this, we're upgrading this. Is that going on?
It is going on, but I'd have to, I'm sorry, I don't
They
have
were
my
like
budget.
planning? Is it just planning to do? I'm sorry, I've lost track of them.
Well, I assume a Measure M funded project would probably come before the pros.
Yes.
Yeah, and so
right.
they
They won't make a decision on it. That would be a budget process. So, but what I would see what they would, have a presentation from the Parks and Recreation Task Force to see where we're going, and then they could, provide, some, not direction, but they could provide some,
Because I just felt like they've gone silent. I don't know anything.
the Parks and Recreation Task Force? Oh.
Yeah, the Measure M people. I know who they are, but I don't know what's going on.
Oh, okay.
All right, thanks.
I'll bring that back. Actually, I would bring that. I'll make sure that we have some report on that, so you know, okay? I don't think that has anything to do with this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor Ding. So at a previous meeting, I asked for an ad hoc committee to be formed that takes a look at a couple of parcels that are zoned for parks currently, and there's, some residents that have been eager to actually see a park come out of there. So could we then dispense with those subcommittees or ad hoc committees, however it was determined, and then move those into this committee?
Yes.
And then you wouldn't have to, so we don't have extra committees, So anyway, we want to clarify that. And then a question, let's say you wanted to do something, for example, it's not in a park, but you wanted to enhance a street, for example, like put trees or benches so people can walk without it being so hot and miserable. Would that be part of this committee? It's not a park, but it's open space. It's trees.
Yeah, in fact, if you look at item number 4 of the responsibilities of the CSEC, it's proposed improvements or modifications to existing city parks, cemeteries, trails, bikeways, and related facilities. I think there's broad discretion there.
Is a street a related facility is my question.
You could also look at new recreation facilities, like you said, open space acquisition and preservation, or other such duties and responsibilities delegated by the city council.
There you go.
Love it.
Yeah, that's what I'm concerned about is that we've had conversations about, certain portions of the city, needing more streets. And I have this thing about benches. Like if you want to encourage people to walk, there's got to be a place for them to sit down to, if their shoe becomes untied or something. It's really discourages people from walking when there's no there's nowhere to sit along the way. So, and we want to encourage people to, to walk as they are able. So, okay, if this committee does that, then I like it.
We can make a note to add that in, specifically, walkways, benches, things of that nature. We kind of have that under the bullet number 5, but it specifically talks about the plaza. We could put in public thoroughfares, things of that nature.
I think that'd be great. Yeah, if people look at that as a friendly amendment, that'd be great. Thank you.
And if we're going to talk about trees, can we just make sure that they don't lift up people's sidewalks? Because even if you don't want those trees 20 years later, you're responsible for them. And I know a house on York that probably did 80 feet of new sidewalk, and she didn't want those trees in the beginning. And I know that the cities are protected by the state, that we don't have to pay for those things. So I'd really like us to pay attention to that. Thank you.
Yeah, city trees are a problem in every, city trees, sidewalks are a problem in every jurisdiction because of that state. So yeah, and that's one of the things about the city planting trees is it becomes a problem 20 years later. So, yeah.
Yeah, it is, I had that problem in my neighborhood, but I would rather have a problem with fixing the sidewalk than not having trees. Every neighborhood that you go in Sonoma that has a lot of trees, everyone goes, oh, isn't this a pretty neighborhood? It's because it's shady and it's got trees.
So
they're messy, but you got to have them.
So one of the tasks would be policies and programs related to tree preservation and the expanding tree planting opportunities in the city.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
And obviously an arborist being involved in this, because I love trees. I think they're lovely, but when you have to put out $10,000 to $15,000 to fix your sidewalk, I think that's unconscionable.
Yes, sidewalk issue is a lot of the cases are pending, especially in the fine in the street, behind the high school, in that area. A lot of the sidewalks right now still is blocked, and no pedestrian kids cannot take the bike. But the owners of the properties, they are not willing to pay the money to fix it. And also, they know that if they have the money, they really don't want to do that. So I always concerned if anything that happen and in the lawsuit and out in the city, if anywhere got damaged or instead of homeowner, that is.
Right, and we do have a sidewalk repair program, and so, and it is, been fairly successful, but what they're doing is grinding the sidewalk, shaving it, yeah. And so, and it works for some sidewalks, not all the sidewalks. Some of our older sidewalks are pretty thick. And so, and actually, you would be surprised that there are homeowners that do actually comply. We tell them it's their responsibility and they do comply with it. So, but, people just don't know that they're responsible.
Yes.
They think, oh, it's a sidewalk, it's the city. And so, yeah, and every city I've been in, it's always a problem on who is responsible for those sidewalks.
Through the mayor,
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got a story, Sue.
Yeah.
You should check to see if that sidewalk replacement program is actually in place, because a few months ago, I checked on that and was told it was no longer being performed, that the money had been used up and that it was not in place. And I said, and by the way, I have a couple of places that I need my sidewalk ground down. How do I proceed? And the answer I got was, either you fix it right now or you're going to be fined. I reported it. And I was reprimanded for reporting it and told that I was going to get fined if I didn't fix it immediately.
Makes sense to me, Mr. Felder.
So, what did I do? I fixed it.
I would love to take that offline with you, because the program is not, it is in place. We have funding for it every year. So, just curious.
If my memory is correct, that is
So
money.
can I submit the bill?
Of course. But right now, I think that money has been spent out because we have very limited. And actually, it's not an shaving, it's inspection money. You have 10,000 plus some 40,000. And then, just very in the low, 4 inches or
Inch and a half.
Oh, inch and a half, inch and a half, inch and a half, and but a lot of the more than that. So that is really, really we need to send us some educational flyers or send a notice, just like he said. If you don't fix it, you will go into trouble. You will punish it.
Yeah. So after the inspection program, I do know that letters are sent to the homeowners.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
specifying but they don't inspect every
Okay.
property.
Yeah.
They have certain portions of the city that they inspect every year, and that they're on a rotational basis. But I would be happy to have Public Works come and give a report on that if you're interested, or during budget when we can talk about that
Yes.
program, because it is funded every year. And so, but I do know it's on a rotational basis because we can't hit every portion of the city so,
Yeah.
but we can bring that. And I think that budget would be a good time to talk about the process.
Thank you, Sue.
Okay.
Wonderful. That's good. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I have a question about the pros committee here, or the different tasks that you're assigning. We were talking about tree planting, obviously. That's already in here, right? Did you add that? Okay. I would suggest perhaps taking the policies in number 7, policies and programs related to resource conservation, and put that in the climate action committee. Like water, energy, all that kind of stuff. Perhaps that's something they can focus.
Yeah, we can do
focus on. But in general, I'm actually very excited about this. So I really want to thank Sue and David for thinking about this. This is the kind of ideas and analysis that I think we were looking for. And so, I think the CSEC the last few years have done a lot of good work, and obviously focusing on climate action is very important. But I think I just like your idea. I think we need to move it to another committee because there's so many other things we also need to focus on, like our parks, like our Overlook Trail, like Montini, like a master plan for the plaza, like street plantings, like our cemeteries.
Yes.
And we need to have a committee focused on those elements for our local community as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this new committee has to say about the blue recycle bins in the plaza, and hopefully we can get going on that. Thank you.
Open to the public. Anybody right now on Zoom?
We have Fred Alabak.
Okay.
Trees and the tree canopy. I noticed if you look at a satellite map of the city, the west side is lacking tree canopy, particularly mobile home parks. And I think that canopy is associated with equity and inequity, and so that'd be a good place to focus. I would suggest with the climate action committee that you have it so that Travis will just run that and really optimize his expertise. And if the climate action committee is widened for membership to include a disadvantaged community member or someone from outside the community, then I suggest that the council make this climate action committee scope more in line with the city's climate emergency resolution, which has a lot of triple bottom line, full cost accounting, sustainability paradigm, full sustainability paradigm messages, and it's not just greenhouse gas reduction. Specifically, I would like to see the scope include climate justice and include some more stuff about equity, because you can do all the greenhouse gas reduction you want, but if you don't bring up the bottom 2 billion people on Earth, the bottom 20%, the impacts of those people are going to tear the whole house down. So you can't just do greenhouse gas reduction. You got to do triple bottom line. I'd also strongly suggest that if you have an environmental climate expert on this new climate action committee, that you appoint Tom Conlon or David Leland. And I would suggest one council, one CSEC, one climate expert, one disadvantaged community out of city member, and one student. And then also, to be fair, I looked at all of the climate action committees in the county, and all of them come out of the gate being really strong, sounding like the city's climate emergency resolution, but at the end of the day, all they focus on is greenhouse gas reductions. So that's a little distressing that sustainability ends up being made into a green thing rather than the triple bottom line full cost accounting that it's really meant to be. And also for the new Parks and Rec Commission, I would also would hope that the city wouldn't think of creating a Parks and Rec department and keep it just at the commission level, because the city saved the money for its greatest need, which is affordable housing, which, as D2 said, with a capital A, that's what we need, I think, for the most. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mr. Alabak. Any more?
There are no more.
No more. All
Mr.
right.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a couple of comments. We need to close the public hearing, yeah, thanks. If you can close the public hearing, I'll make some
All right.
comments.
Let me close public comment.
Thank you. I did forget to mention the Joint Council Climate Action Committee. In your deliberations, it would be helpful to get feedback from to staff to let us know of the role of the council, whether it wants to disband because of the creation of the Climate Action Committee, that your role as a joint is no longer necessary at this point as far as an oversight thing, to let these two groups go do their thing. Again, we would need some time to put these documents together, but that feedback would be helpful in case your members of your council want to still have that active role. And then in talking with Mr. Walsh, we could maybe try to get something back to you with the mechanics of the duties and responsibilities at your second meeting in April. And if it goes beyond that, so be it, but at least you know that we're working on it between now and then. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just from my point of view, since I'm on that committee, that joint committee, I would assume that this would replace that. And that committee could function in separate from the city council and report back to the city council.
Well, that depends on whether the committee still wants to be a committee at all.
Well, no, I'm saying disband that joint committee.
Yes.
And let the new one
okay, sorry.
just report back to council.
Yes, I misunderstood.
I don't know if
Right, great.
Councilmember Agamati
No, I'm
agrees.
fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. Could I
Go
add,
ahead.
could I add to that? Travis Wagner is still going to be involved in that, number one. And he's being relieved of CSEC.
Yeah, and I think that our city manager will, in the budget process, try to figure out how to staff the PROS, the pros, and figure out how to do that.
And is there a timeline for something like that? What, with Travis moving out of CSEC, or?
No, he'll be staffing the Climate Action Committee, but there'll be a transition. I mean, between now and when we get the implementation done.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much.
And,
Thank you.
and if this proposal is approved by us tonight, the CSCC would also be disbanded.
Yes.
And so
That is correct.
current commissioners would be invited to apply to either climate action or pros.
Yes.
That is correct, along with the selection of an arborist and a team member.
Right.
A youth member, sorry.
As a Climate Action Commission, it's really, yeah, just like Fred mentioned, it's kind of, related with the social something issue. But I'm not sure how to, describe this in this commission, because climate action actually that is for the future oriented. But in the future oriented and also in the social issue, equity and inequity, I'm not sure how we can connect it or, yeah, please.
We'll certainly, Mr. Mayor, confer with Travis. We do have a climate action plan, and I think it would be beneficial for us to come up with a list of duties and responsibilities that the council can discuss.
Okay, that's good.
Just as a follow-on, there's a new draft came out in February of that climate action plan. It's very thorough and it has a very good list of things that need to be accomplished. So I think that's a good ground level document to head off the new committee.
That's good.
Yeah, and if I can just add to that, thank you, Councilmember Felder. One of the tasks that Travis was tasked with was to come up with a prioritization. He's also available on Zoom if you have any questions specific to it, to the climate action plan. But he was asked to prioritize as far as bang for the buck, cost to the city, as far as implementation of the climate action plan. That was part of what you're talking about, Mr. Felder.
That's great. Any more comments or further discussion?
Well, I'd just like to chime in. I along with Council Member Barnett, I certainly fully support this thing. I think this is the right way for us to head in the direction to, refine our committees to match the duties that are in front of us. So I think this is a great idea.
Yeah. Can you take it as well? Oh, no public comments already did. Yeah, I think can you treat it as your motion? Yeah.
Make that a motion. I move that we form these new committees.
Yeah.
I don't have to.
And I'll second it with the stipulation that the things we talked about were included, the comments. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, got it. Second.
Second. All right. Yeah, roll call, please.
Councilmember Felder.
Aye.
Councilmember Lowe.
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett.
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, everyone. Let's move forward. We're on a fast almost. Yeah, we are got agenda number 7, council members report and comments.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a comment rather than a report. Can I do that?
Sure.
Two things. First of all, I would like to recommend that we form a new ad hoc committee for parklets, because it has kind of morphed off of the zoning code ad hoc, and it's really a separate subject. So I think we ought to have a new ad hoc committee for parklets, because we have a task at hand, and it has a reasonably short duration. Second one, I would like to find out if we can convince staff to go to a totally in-person meeting, including the audience.
That's great. Great.
What?
Including the audience,
Including audience.
rather than a hybrid meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to clarify that. So I think if the full council is, supportive of that, I would like to wait till after the March 16th meeting, only it would give us time to notice the public, and Rebecca's on vacation right now, so we just want to make sure that we've got it fully noticed. But you would still allow Zoom presentations. Would that be? Because
Some limited amount of, and if there's also a special needs person from time to time that can't make the meeting room, so we have the ability to have that accommodation, but I would, as a general rule, I would encourage the public to show up in person.
Okay. And
That's good. Yeah, Vice Mayor Barnett.
I have no reports nor comments. Or comments.
Thank you. I attended the 4-hour meeting today, just before we started our meeting at 4, Sonoma County Continuum of Care Board. We have nominations for people to serve on the Continuum of Care Board, and one was the provider seat. Lisa Fatou was elected to the COC. She's a continuing member. She represents social advocates for youth. Benjamin Leroy from Santa Rosa Community Health District. He's a licensed healthcare organization. He is filling the licensed healthcare organization seat. Two at-large seats were filled by Molly Boise, community member, and Kathleen Posey, community member, and she is a defense attorney. And there is a person who was voted on to the LEAP, which is lived experience seat, which is Chessie Etheridge, and she is a community member.
That's great. Councilmember
That's
Lowe?
it.
Yes, I attended a meeting that was put together to sort of begin to formulate this youth council idea that we talked about earlier, and it was very well attended. Lily Gelb was able to get some students there. Maite Turi was there, Caitlin Cornwall from the Sonoma Collaborative, and lots of notes were taken, and they're working on it to come back to us with something, and very excited about it. Everyone seemed to be really enthused, and I think having that committee will be helpful when you're looking for a youth member for another committee. You have some people who are trained and know what's going on. So I was very encouraged by that. And then I know we're going to do long range agenda items, but in keeping with Councilmember Felder's motion regarding the parklets, we really need to do something about our campaign finance ordinance in the city sooner rather than later, because this is an election year, and even though filing doesn't start until the summertime, people are already considering about it. I might have even read something about it in the paper last week about somebody interested. So they need to have those guidelines right away, so that they can't, even though they don't, the filing period hasn't opened, opening committees and funding them, you can do that at any point. And we need some guidance on that, because right now I think our plan that we have now is well, no one really can interpret it. It's a problem. So I'd like to see that come back sooner rather than later.
Sure.
Through the mayor. Just to jump in again, I just have too many things. I did recommend to our acting city manager that we change that title to future and long range agenda items, because there are things that come up from time to time that demand urgent action. And it would leave it up to staff to determine whether that's feasible, given staff time and whatever, to pursue it, because some things can be handled very quickly and easily. So that's up to staff, but I think it would give us the leeway of not only setting things for the calendar for the next quarter, but giving us the chance to add some extra things on if we need to.
Yes, and I was going to do that in my city manager update when we were going to talk about it, and so you stole my thunder, but that's okay. But I do believe, yeah, I mean, as you say, these items, we're going to have to set priorities, and I would like us to go back to like the 90-day agenda setting calendar. Some of these, there's a few things like the cigarette or the menthol that we can just quickly fix, but there are some things that take more time. I know that campaign finance is on Rebecca's radar, and we had talked about that, but again, she's on vacation for 2 weeks, but that is on her radar. We're also there's a couple other things that we had mentioned that were that we could bring forward more quickly, but the other items, when you throw those out, we'll put them on a just note them, and then when we do our quarterly agenda setting, then that's when we'll bring those up. So, but if it's a quick item or if it's an urgent item, we would come back to you in a timeline.
And Mr. Mayor, there's another committee. I was thinking about this today, the Memorial Bench Program. There were some changes that needed to be made years ago, because I think it was suggested to have multiple names on a bench to pay for the bench. So I think we've had some pushback from the people who would like benches, so they're not interested in that. So it's in the policy, so we might take a look at that as well.
Okay.
And I'll volunteer for that.
Okay, so I'll bring that. I thought we had updated that already, so, but I may not know. I
Yeah,
may not know that.
That I
so,
don't know.
Okay.
But thank
But-
you.
Okay.
I was attending TID group in the meeting, that is tourism. Yeah, looks like everybody is very happy because the tax they collected is much, much higher than they expect, you know. And although during the pandemic, right now it's the level based on the last half year because we have the 2 months and the delay, right? Based on that number, and we almost already reach whole years. Yeah, it's amazing, you know. Right now it's gonna open up, you know, it will be, you know, much, much better than that is very, very encouraging. And also I mentioned about and how to celebrate 200th anniversary. They are also very positive. They want to and you know, see who want to join, or we out in the city have some committee, or maybe we can consider we can set up the subcommittee and ad hoc committee for 1 year or something like that. Also, they are very, very passionate. They said, we have the money. We want to tell us how much money you want to spend. That is very good, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, that is all. That is my report. Yeah. And Councilmember Fogel,
I'm done.
I was just going to say, if we are doing council member comments, it appears that Broadway has been restriped.
Yeah. Yes, that is right. Yeah,
And that's all. Yeah.
For the second time.
Yeah.
And yeah, and also I want to say thank you, Sue, Casey. You are standing up very positively and helping the council member. Everything moving very smooth, very quickly. I can tell in the nighttime, the 10 o'clock, you still reply my email. That is, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Everyone.
Well,
Yeah. Thank you.
I did have a few more comments, if I can.
Sure.
Is that okay? I know it's a long meeting, but I just I wanted to give a quick update on SOS, and because there were some things that were asked at the last council meeting. On the 16th, we will have a full staff report, and we'll be talking about the extension of the MOU. But some of the things I've been working on since that meeting, we did do a follow-up second discussion with the Sonoma Veterans Memorial Building about possibly moving the safe parking program there. They did confirm that there's a compatibility issue with the use of overnight parking at the Vets Building. They stated the Vets Building functions as a community event space and for veterans as well as, you know, the general public, and the building is just booked, and it's just getting more booked up with the pandemic, you know, relaxing the rules. So they said that it was just not compatible to have this safe parking program in their parking lot. So a couple other things, Field of Dreams and SOS either have met or met this week, so I'm hoping that they can sort of give an update of that meeting at the next council meeting. And one other exciting thing that I'm working on, last Thursday I met with Andrew Henning, who was referred to me by Dave Kiff, and he founded a company that works with public agencies to end homelessness, drive civic innovation, and implement systematic change. And he's also the co-founder and project director for Opening Doors Marin, a county-wide coalition of county supervisors, city council members, nonprofit leaders, government executives, business leaders, faith-based leaders, and philanthropy to develop in the public and private capital to end chronic and veteran homelessness in Marin County. So he's currently working for the city of Petaluma part-time to provide some of the services described that I just described. And so we had a long conversation, and we were discussing the various homeless services provided here in Sonoma and in the Valley. We talked about SOS, Homeless Action Sonoma, HAS, La Luz, and Fish, and and we just talked about all those service providers. And he had some really innovative ideas with some both short-term and long-term solutions. But in his words, he said, in order to make decisions about the parts, it's critical to look at the whole. And so homelessness is really, it's a city issue as well as a regional issue. And staff, city staff, we're just not experts on the issue. And we have really little time to vote to all of this. Utilizing a contractor who's really has the expertise to evaluate all the services currently offered in Sonoma and the Valley, and really assess how the continuum of care is working for the community would really help to make the city make informed decisions about all of this. And so I've asked Andrew to come to the March 16th meeting and just give a presentation on the services he provides. And he has a lot of ideas for strategic planning, facilitation, community-wide assessment, and then partnership building activities. So I'm really excited about that. I think it's something that if we were to bring him on as a contractor, he could really help us, solve some of these issues that we're having. And then I'm meeting on Friday with Kathy King and the police chief, because I'm just, I'm really excited to learn about the services that they're providing, get some statistics on what they've done, and then we'll also report back that at the next meeting. And then one more exciting thing that's happened with this. Planning Director Storr just said that the city received a 100-page application, and it was referred from the County of Sonoma Planning Department, and it's for a proposed project located on the outskirts of the Springs area. And it was submitted by Homeless Action Sonoma, and it's for an administrative design review approval for a temporary low-barrier navigation center. And it's located on a property on Highway 12. And the Low Barrier Navigation Center is defined in the government code as a housing first, low barrier service enriched shelter focused on moving people into permanent housing. And it provides temporary living facilities while case managers connect individuals to income, public benefits, health services, shelter, and housing. And it's just low barrier means best practices to reduce barriers to entry. So the site will have 22, the first temporary site will have 22 units, 18 for single occupancy and 2 units for double occupancy. And there are also, on this site, there'll be a trailer shower and toilets, a solar array, a trailer home for a site manager, a garden, a dog park, communal tent for dining, and an adjacent property, a client center. So, and there'll also be a laundry, clothing, all these other things that are on this site. So it's a really exciting, thing that's just happening right around the corner from us. And so we just thought we'd bring this up because we're going to be talking about, the services that the county provides, SOS provides, and this will be an important part of that discussion.
So could I add to that? I attended the COC meeting. And one of the things that's so wonderful is they now have a new contract with Home First, which is from Santa Clara County. They're going to be taking Catholic Charities' place, and they're going to be concentrating. They are a new regional coordinated entry, because we've never had that here, which I think is great. So they're coming in, they start April 1st. And everything that we do is only temporary. Their goal is to get people into permanent housing. And of course, we need places for people to live. And that has, and I wanted to sort of dispel what people have said. I was looking at a report that they had COC, that if you come from Santa Rosa, you don't want to move to Sonoma. If you come from Sonoma, you don't want to go to Rohnert Park. So to dispel that information that's been going out, our people won't go anywhere. It's very common because a lot of homeless people have families that do not want them in their homes because they're disruptive. So, we just need to dispel some of that information, and I'm really glad. Thank you and I'm glad that you're meeting with the Field of Dreams people. I actually responded to Seamus Canning, I think, and I suggested, that he joined our effort in looking for property. We asked them 2 years ago if they would help us with that, and there were no takers on that offer. But this is a community thing, not just the city. It needs a community that's really committed. I tried to say I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to anyway. Our homeless have turned into leopards of Molokai, and that is horrible. We need to feel, and I know they come with problems, but I think it's just really important that we consider that as well. And as I said to Seamus Canning, I think the children are number one. very important, and that's what they're concerned about. I think we are as well. But, you know, we can't just, if we get rid of that safe parking, they could put Tent City on our plaza. People need to understand that. We're only like five days away from somebody who wants to help homeless and hand out tents. And that's how it started in San Francisco. And we can't move them. So that's something I think people should be aware of. But thank you so much for following up. And I know Andrew Henning, I spoke to him a couple of years ago and was really excited that he's going to be part of this. I think it's going to be really important for all of us to get the facts. Thank you.
What is the application that Planning Director Storr mentioned, the Low Barrier Navigation Center? What is the timing? How will that process play out? When do you think, in your best estimation, that will be opened?
They want to be open for the next winter and then the subsequent winter. And while they're doing this, I think Sue mentioned this is a temporary solution on the southern half of the property. That's the 0.6 acres.
Right, by Baker and
And
Cook.
so, yeah, just south of that. And then it's just north of the homes on Encinas Lane. While this temporary shelter is in place for 2 years, they're going to start construction on the north half of the property for a permanent barrier.
They're going to stage it that way.
They're going to stage it that way, yeah.
So that they'll be on where the parking lot will be of the site.
The neat thing about it is, I don't know if you've seen them, but these units are, did you mention it, Sue? They're 9 by 9 or 8.5 by 8.5.
You can see them there by Friedman's on the south side.
I don't know if
I've
they're the
taken
same
pictures,
ones, though.
though.
I don't know if they are. Are they the same
Yeah,
ones?
they are. I took pictures.
The photograph, the design plans, and I'm happy to circulate them to council if there's an interest in the application, not the 100 pages, but just the site planning diagrams if you're interested. It shows that, again, there's 22 of these things, but they're made out of steel, corrugated steel, and I saw the ones that I saw on near Friedman's. They look like they were made out of plywood.
They were
They
wood.
plywood or something. That's what caused the question in my mind. So I can circulate that. Would that be okay?
Sure, yeah.
Thank
just
you.
as a site plan and a
Right.
couple of.
I'm interested to see about the funding, so that'll be.
And the good thing about this location is it's right across, I mean, it's across from the Grange as well for where the feeding is, where they have food services. But it's also one of the things that Chief Rodriguez had said is having a property right on Highway 12, because then the bus services, so that they if they work in Sonoma, they have the ability to, take a bus. And so they'll, they do have some of the same services that, or they will be providing that service that SOS is providing here in town, so.
A free bus, which is great. Free.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. If nobody, we already finished agenda number 8. City managers and the comments. The next agenda, that is city attorney's comments. Jeff, it's yours. All right. So the next agenda, adjournment.
So moved.
Who?
So moved.
A move?
I mean, you don't.
I second.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, everyone. Thank you, everyone.